contribution. The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for McEwen.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Well, following that 5 minutes of comedy of errors, the government has finally achieved a policy through to the outcome that they desired, the death of the automotive industry in Australia. While it's known I'm a fierce blue oval man, growing up in the shadow of the Ford factory of Broady, I can't deny the vital role that Holdens have played in Australia's rich automotive history. It goes back to about 1856 when Sir James Alexander Holden originally established a saddlery business, growing through popularity and innovation to become the exclusive supplier for General Motors Australia in 1924. In 1931, General Motors in Australia merged with Holden to become GMH. Ford and GMH dominated the fledgling automotive industry during this period. In 1948, the first car made in Australia for Australians, the 48215 or FX, arrived. From the 48215 to the VF Commodore, Holden has been Australia's motor car. The government's final nail in the coffin for the Australian car manufacturing industry was hammered in last Friday, with the closure of the last Holden factory in Adelaide. A truly sad day, and to be honest, I'm still in shock to think that Australia doesn't make cars anymore. Words I never thought I would ever say. This closure is a national tragedy that didn't have to happen. It was a government choice that made this happen. We didn't have to lose such an icon, and we didn't need to kill thousands of manufacturing jobs in Australia. It's yet another short-sighted decision by a Liberal government that doesn't get how important manufacturing jobs are in a diversified economy. I sat in this parliament in utter disbelief when the Abbott-Turnbull Liberal government pulled out the investment from the automotive industry, with blowhard hockey goading Holden to leave Australia. He did this even though he knew Holden making cars locally was a $33 billion boost to the Australian economy. If you think back to the E.J. Holden, the slogan was the look of leadership. Rest assured, this is something this government has never had. Holden is synonymous with the Australian lifestyle. Back in the 70s, we had the ads: football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars. Cars such as Kingswood, Monaros, Tiranas, the original Sin Bin, the Sandman and the Commodore were choices of great Australian generations. These cars became part of our identities. Holden had such a wide appeal that it became part of our pop culture. If you're a little bit older, you remember shows like Kingswood Country and old Ted Bullpit, the conservative Kingswood-loving putty factory worker and ex-World War II veteran. Driving a Holden was a social status depending on the vehicle, unless it was a Chimera or the Starfire 4 V8 Commodore, of course. But it was the Commodore that ruled them all, Australia's own car. It was such an icon that it became Australia's top-selling car for 15 years. You cannot paint a full picture of Holden's contribution and success without talking about the motorsport landscape. There isn't anything like the Bathurst 1000. The rivalry produced Australia's most famous muscle cars, the Bathurst Specials. Race cars that were driven by icons such as Lowndes, Scaife, Norm Beechey, and of course Bruce McPhee and Barry Mulholland, who gave Holden its very first Bathurst win. Of course, the biggest of them all, one of the McEwen electorate's most famous names, Peter Brock, or aka Peter Perfect, King of the Mountain, won all 9 Bathurst championships in Holdens. His association with Holden was the stuff of legends, debuting in 1969 in a HT Monaro GDS and going on to win the event 9 times between 72 and 87, a feat that has not been equalled since. Peter Brock was such an icon that Holden collaborated with him, taking race-inspired design like the first HDT VC Commodore and my favourite, the iconic VK Group A Blue Meanie. Clearly, as a petrol head, I could talk about cars till the cows come home. But I rise to condemn the government for their short-sighted actions to cut down Australia's automotive industry. This is about the thousands of people left without jobs, the generations devoted to Holden since its early days, who worked day in and day out to put food on the tables. Those generations of Australians that shaped this industry, with countless stories of immigrants building a life and a country off the back of car manufacturing. Stories like Arrivederci Holden, the factory that fed my family, by SBS's Daniela Retorto wrote, should never ever be forgotten. To the Holden workforce, we thank you for your hard work in shaping this nation. Your contribution will be sorely missed. The end of the era didn't